She hadn't meant to fall asleep. The girl, no more than 22, maybe younger if exhaustion was aging her, sat rigidly in the narrow economy seat, her back pressed straight as if discipline alone could keep her awake. Her baby was strapped to her chest in a faded blue carrier, the fabric soft and worn thin from too many washes, too many nights of pacing small rooms. The baby's breath was warm against her collarbone, slow and steady, a fragile rhythm that felt like the only thing in the world she could still rely on. Around them, the airplane hummed with life. Overhead bins snapped shut. Passengers shuffled past, murmuring apologies, dragging carry-ons that bumped knees and seats. A flight attendant smiled professionally, the kind of smile practiced enough to be comforting without being personal. The girl stared straight ahead, eyes glassy, fighting a battle she had already lost. She had been awake for nearly 30 hours. The night before had been spent packing in the dim light of a flickering bulb, trying not to wake the baby, trying not to cry. Before that, weeks, months, of nights like this, each one heavier than the last. When the plane finally lifted off, the pressure change made her ears pop, and her grip tightened instinctively around the baby's back. He stirred, let out a tiny sigh, then settled again. Safe. Still asleep. She told herself she would stay awake just a little longer. Just until the seatbelt sign went off. Just until she was sure the baby was comfortable. Just until she could convince herself that this flight, this choice, wasn't a mistake. Her head tipped forward, then to the side. And then, without realizing it, her temple came to rest against something solid and warm. A shoulder. She didn't wake. The man beside her noticed immediately. He had boarded late, slipping into the aisle seat with quiet efficiency, dressed simply in a dark sweater and tailored pants that fit too well to be accidental. His watch was expensive but understated. His posture was straight, his movements precise, like someone used to controlling rooms without raising his voice. When her head touched his shoulder, his body stiffened for half a second, an instinctive reaction. He glanced down, prepared to gently shift away, to give her space. Then he saw the baby. The tiny fist curled near her collarbone. The soft rise and fall of the infant's chest. The faint smudge of milk at the corner of the baby's mouth. And the girl's face. Up close, the exhaustion was undeniable. Dark circles beneath her eyes. Lips chapped, slightly parted. A crease between her brows that spoke of worry rather than age. She smelled faintly of baby powder and cheap soap. She wasn't being careless. She wasn't being rude. She was empty. The man, Ethan Hale, had been called many things in his life. Ruthless, brilliant, cold, visionary. The youngest CEO to ever take his company public. A man who could negotiate million-dollar deals before breakfast and fire an executive without blinking. But in that moment, none of those labels mattered. He stayed perfectly still. He adjusted his shoulder by a fraction of an inch, just enough to support her head more comfortably. He angled his body slightly, creating a barrier between her and the aisle so passing passengers wouldn't bump her. He didn't look at his phone. He didn't call for a flight attendant. He didn't sigh in irritation. He just let her sleep. Minutes passed, then 20, then an hour. The plane settled into cruising altitude. Lights dimmed. The low murmur of conversation faded into the soft white noise of engines and recycled air. Ethan had flown thousands of times. Private jets. First-class suites. Red-eye flights where sleep came easily because nothing ever truly touched him. This was different. He felt the subtle weight of her head, the warmth seeping through the fabric of his sweater. He could feel how tense she had been even in sleep, her jaw clenched slightly, her shoulders tight. Every now and then, the baby would shift, and she would unconsciously tighten her arms, a reflex born from too many moments of fear. At some point, her breathing deepened. She was truly asleep now. Ethan's mind, usually a battlefield of projections and strategies, grew quiet. Memories surfaced uninvited. His mother, falling asleep at the kitchen table when he was 8, a stack of unpaid bills beside her coffee cup. The way she used to apologize for being tired. For everything. For things that were never her fault. He swallowed. A flight attendant approached, paused when she saw the scene, then softened. She leaned closer, whispering, "Sir, would you like me to?" He shook his head slightly. "She's fine." The attendant nodded and moved on. When the girl finally stirred, it was not gentle. She woke with a sharp intake of breath, her body jerking upright as panic surged through her veins. For half a second, she didn't know where she was. Plane, seat, baby. Her eyes dropped to the carrier. Still there. Still asleep. Relief hit her so hard it made her dizzy. Then she realized. Her head had been on his shoulder. She pulled back as if burned, cheeks flushing crimson. I'm so sorry, she blurted out, her voice barely above a whisper. I didn't mean to. I'm sorry. She braced herself for annoyance. For anger. For disgust. She'd learned to expect it. Ethan met her eyes calmly. It's okay, he said. His voice was low, steady. You needed the rest. She stared at him, confused. People didn't usually say that. I shouldn't have, she began, fumbling with the straps of the carrier, as if busying her hands could make the embarrassment go away. I can move if you want. I didn't mean to bother you. You didn't, he said. Please, sit comfortably. She hesitated, then nodded, sitting back carefully, this time keeping a deliberate inch of space between them. Her heart pounded. Her thoughts raced. God, how long was I asleep? Did I drool? Did the baby cry? She risked a glance at him. He was watching the seatback screen, hands folded loosely in his lap. Relaxed, unbothered. After a moment, he looked at her again. How old is he? 4 months, she replied automatically. Then, catching herself, she added, his name is Noah. Ethan, he said, gesturing lightly to himself. She nodded, unsure what to say next. Silence stretched, but it wasn't uncomfortable. Just, quiet. Eventually, she spoke again, words spilling out before she could stop them. Thank you. For not waking me. I know that was probably weird. It wasn't, he said. You looked like you hadn't slept in a while. A small, humorless smile tugged at her lips. That obvious. To someone who's been there, he replied. She looked at him more closely now, noticing the faint lines near his eyes. The tiredness he carried differently, controlled, hidden, but real. The rest of the flight passed with small exchanges. He offered to hold her water while she adjusted the baby. She told him she was flying to her sister's place. Just for a while. Until she figured things out. She didn't say more. She didn't need to. When the plane landed and passengers began to stand, the tension returned to her shoulders. Reality crept back in. She fumbled with her bag, trying to juggle everything at once. Here, Ethan said, standing. He reached up and retrieved her small carry-on from the overhead bin before she could protest. Thank you, she said softly. They walked off the plane together, swept along by the crowd. At the gate, she stopped, unsure whether to say goodbye or simply disappear into the terminal like she usually did. Ethan hesitated too. Then he reached into his pocket and pulled out a business card. Listen, he said, holding it out. I don't know your situation, and I won't pretend to. But if you need help, real help, call me. Even if it's just advice. She stared at the card. Ethan Hale, CEO. Her breath caught. She looked up at him, eyes wide. You're. He smiled faintly. Yes. Shock washed over her face, followed quickly by something else. Fear, pride, doubt. I can't, she said quickly, pushing the card back toward him. I don't take charity. It's not charity, he said gently. It's an open door. Whether you walk through it is up to you. Her fingers trembled as she took the card. Thank you, she whispered, unsure why tears burned her eyes. Ethan nodded once. Take care of Noah. Then he turned and walked away, blending into the crowd as if he were just another passenger. She stood there for a long moment, staring after him, the card warm in her palm. 3 weeks later, in the middle of another sleepless night, she finally dialed the number. And everything changed.